We're going to talk about today at the 7 strategies to basically prevent stress and burnout, which what we find out with where most people struggle is what is stress, and I tell people stress is the the emotion or physical strain related to anything between people, circumstance, or how you see yourself. Burnout is basically when you have prolonged stress for a very, very long time, and then you're really you can see it in a lack of effort, lack of focus, lack of engagement with people. So, and the reason I spend a lot of time with this because I coach CEOs, business owners, and the biggest challenge I find out is how do they manage stress on a daily basis? How do they prevent burnout or be self-aware? Because if you look at the last couple of years after COVID, people had decent stress management strategies or techniques. After COVID, everything changed. COVID, I think even for like, I have a daughter who's 21 and a son who's 14, they became COVID kids and their stress level is really, really high. And I see it in a lot of the clients I coach. People's ability to manage stress or be aware of burnout has diminished. So I find out a lot of times what we end up having to do when I work with people is really help them manage the stress and be self-aware of burnout. And then when I find out, even I have, and I was telling Kim, I have some clients are non-Christian. I have some clients who are Christian, and it's interesting is they're all struggling in how to manage stress, how to have. I use this term as you can't outrun your mind. You can't outrun it. Your mind will always, if you feel stressed out, your mind will keep moving it. They call it monkey brain. So what we're going to talk about today is the 7 strategies to prevent stress. So the first one, there's a book called Miracle Morning by a gentleman named Hal Aldrod. And so it talks about he says, if you win your morning, you can win your day. So what he says, there's 5 things that you really want to do. Well, it's 5, it's added 6. It's number 1 is you want to get up early in the morning. And what most people do, most successful executives, they get up a certain time, maybe 5 o'clock. They do these 6 things. Silence. They get up in the morning and they become really silent. They center themselves. They read affirmations. They visualize how their day will look like. They actually exercise. Some of them will do 30 minutes. They'll run for an hour, and they'll actually come back and read maybe the Bible, a book, or a chapter, and they will journal. Now, the interesting thing about this is that they say if you get up early in the morning, and the best time is early before everyone else, you can actually get in a space where some of the clients I have, they actually do all 6 or they do portions of this because it centers them and helps them focus. And the author is called Hal Aldrod. He created the whole book of Miracle Morning. He has it from Miracle Morning for entrepreneurs, Miracle Morning for parents, Miracle Morning for kids, Miracle Morning for employees. And so one of the things we figured out is that if you can get in a routine that allows you to be silent. Affirmations are really important. Visualize how your day is, exercise, read, and you journal. We find out what most people do is they're able to at least. It's funny, like I have a CEO of a client who says every time I do a miracle morning right now, my morning from like when I go to work around 8 till about 1 o'clock is solid. Nothing really goes wrong. Then he goes, but all the stress happens. He tells me all the stress happens after 1 to 5, and we figured out the solutions for that. So one of the things we tell people is, when you're first starting out, is how is your morning? Do you do any of these? If you do these, you'll find out that it just gives you a point to center and then allows you to be better prepared. What we find out when people don't do this is they get up. Like I have a client whose husband just gets up early in the morning, gets dressed, and goes right to work. He doesn't center, he doesn't do all these things, and whatever he carries the night before or that day goes right into work. So my question is does anybody or use this type of process where they actually have used the miracle morning or use some elements of this to get them centered for the day? Right. All right, we'll go to the next one. The next one, it's interesting, is one of the
They're
biggest
coming
things.
in. We
Go ahead.
see
Go ahead.
the Aaron Armstrong that she says she does, Dr. Karen does. Yeah, so Richard does. I'm sorry. They're
Okay,
coming
good.
in now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and the book is pretty simple. It's a really quick read, and they have a community around it. But I find out this is the basics for people to improve their stress and eliminate or lessen burnout because they can start their morning. Because most people who are successful get up in the morning and prepare themselves for the rest of the day. The next thing that I find out it's interesting is sleep. The biggest challenge we find out right now, people are having a hard time sleeping. So what they usually suggest with sleep is you want to create a sleep routine. And this is the hardest thing. I was talking to my brother-in-law as a family doctor. He said, look, the secret of this is you got to sleep the same time every night. You have to go bed the same time every night. You have to set a bedtime alarm. You got to wind down. You got to spend it like an hour not on any social media. One of the things I reckon my clients, and I actually give them as a gift in a year, is I give them a sleep mask. Because when you put a sleep mask on, if you're used to it, I've trained myself with a sleep mask. I put a sleep mask, I'll go to sleep automatically. I mean, I'm go to sleep right there. Um, you want to not have any screens because when you do those things, what happens is you we find out is if you can sleep early consistently, it's easier to get up to do that miracle morning. We find out when people try to do the miracle morning, but they're sleeping like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, they're mentally and emotionally exhausted. And then usually if you're not creating a consistent sleep routine, they say now you need anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sleep, or sometimes eight to 10. And so, but I find out some people they can get 6 hours consistently. So we recommend that. I have some clients right now that I have to coach them and remind them to create that habit of going to sleep the same time, same day. And they're asking me, how do I do it on the weekend, Arnell? Well, you do the weekend or you make adjustments, but when your work week's Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, you really want to get that sleep. The hardest thing about this is that you got to get everybody bought in. If you have family living with you, like I have a client who has to tell his wife, hey, I have to be in bed by 9. Can we go to bed? Can you get the kids involved? They all sleep early, but it does benefit him, his spouse, and the kids, because if he's able to get the sleep he needs and get up morning, he can get his day done, and then when he gets home, he's fully engaged. When he doesn't do that, he comes home tired. So who here has consistent goes to bed the same time every night? Is that something that people struggle with, or that's something somebody is used to doing?
I don't go to bed. I fall asleep on now.
That means you're working hard.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what happens? A lot of my entrepreneurs say, "I don't go to sleep, Arna." So what do you do? I fall asleep. So you're working really hard. There's no time off for you. There's like I fall asleep, I wake up, I start my day. I
But
see
yeah,
that.
they're coming in. A lot of people have bedtime. I see 10 p.m.,
Uh-huh.
9 p.m. So yeah, a lot of people have sleep times.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you have a bedtime, just look at it. What is your routine? You go to bed. Do you turn off? Like I had a client. We had to make sure he had to be in bed at 10. He would turn off an hour before he'd go to bed all his social media and TV. He would actually read a book. He would actually stretch. He would have a sleep mask, right? He wouldn't drink 3 hours before. I mean, he really wanted to get good quality sleep every night because he runs a business that does about 15, 20 million. He goes like, Arna, if I don't get some sleep, I can't make good business decisions. Like I'm running on ragged. So he just created a very simple ritual of 4 or 5 things, and it was become pretty consistent. And what we find out is if you can get to sleep at the same time every night and you wake up every morning to do the miracle morning, your chances of managing stress and burnout is high. Most people they eventually will catch up if you don't. The other thing, here's the interesting thing I say when I work with people, the reason people are stressed out or burn out is their schedule. I find out that people now, when I look at people's schedule, if they're really busy, they schedule everything back to back. Like 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11. Their time blocks are back to back. There's no breaks. There's no white space. There's there's no in between. They're either I find people have a schedule where they have less things on it, right? Or they have so many things on it. They just go back to back, back to back to back. Or they don't use a calendar as much. They just feel busy. So they're just literally just going from one thing to the other. So what we usually have people do is to give them I call the prevent stress or burnout. You got to give people a choice. Is schedule what we call white space. Schedule space in your calendar that you have control. One of the biggest challenges when you're overwhelmed or stressed out or burnout, you feel like you can't make a decision. You feel like you're on a roller coaster. You feel like you're under control of everybody's expectation. So a lot of times the clients, what they have so many things going on from family, kids, business, employees. I said, when's the time can you take white space where you can actually just take a deep breath, um, breathe, meditate, and then okay, and have control. Because when most people who feel stressed or burnout feel like they don't have any control. So what we do is we look at your schedule and look at, okay, do you have white space? Or can you rate your schedule where you have breaks in between? Because what I've noticed, most people after COVID, they're just trying to do so many things in less hours, but there's no space in between, you know? And then the other thing too is multitasking is not a good thing. I tell people multitasking keeps you makes you stressful. Um, and people are like, no, 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 because here's what happens: you're doing six things you're doing six things at a time. You'll never complete all of them. You just do a little bit here and there, and multitasking does make people. So I find out when people actually can block out a time for like 30 minutes and just, write a paper or make 10 or 15 calls, and they're done. When they multitask, what I find out, they're overwhelmingly trying to do six or seven things, and I find that it's very not effective, and then you always feel you're behind. So a lot of times when you look at your time blocks, is really looking at, do you block white space? Do you block time where you focus on certain concentrated work? Do you schedule, like I have some clients who schedule white space during the day or right after lunch. What they'll do, they'll schedule like in between their appointments 15 to 20 minutes, and they'll go out and take a walk. They'll go out and meditate. They'll go read a scripture or two, right? They'll get grounded and then resume. Because what I find out, if you don't have white space or space in between, whatever you carry from meeting to meeting, it just compounds into your soul, your mind, and you're not fully engaged, and that adds stress. And then you're feeling like, I didn't get this done, I didn't do this. So I usually recommend that you give yourself breaks between meetings. You may, if you're stressed out, maybe right at lunch, before you go to lunch, you take a walk. You have 15-minute breaks. You may have some people who just meditate. Some people who just they'll read the scripture right there. They'll read the Bible, or listen to a song, just to break the monotony and get them back. Because what you really want to do is give you time to really just focus on, you have control. You can actually block out some stuff. You can get some short breaks, because there's a big demand. I find out where people are like, got to have you right now. And a lot of my clients, we have to write out their schedule and say, where's your break? Where's your break? Where's your break? Where's your white space? Um, so do you guys in the group, do you have time blocks or white space already built in your calendar? That's where I find out most people, they don't. They just go from one appointment to the other. All right. The other thing that's most important, I find out that helps people prevent stress and helps people lessen burnout is, imagine yourself having a long day at work and it's very stressful, right? How do you not take the stress at home? How do you not take it at home? So I have some clients like, well, Arnell, I always feel like I go home, I'm not engaged because it was a long day. So what we have helped them, and I've seen other successful CEOs. There's a book called Power and Full Engagement, talks about you really just have to give yourself, what they call an end of day ritual. So what a lot of clients will do before they leave, when they leave work, they will actually review their accomplishments, look at notes, intentional sign off, write their wins, and then they'll go to like a park or in their car they'll meditate, read the word, they'll pray a little bit. They disengage from work, right? And go, okay, I'm gonna go in there with my family and be fully engaged. So what they do is they give themselves an end of day ritual. They actually close the day and leave it there. And then they go into their home, personal, home, family, loved one, significant other, and they go into being fully engaged. Without that, I find out without any day ritual, you just seem to carry your same stuff every day, and it carries over to night, it carries it to morning. So one of the things I usually recommend people to do is really block out before you get off from work an hour just to do end of day stuff. Review for next day, note accomplishments, write down some wins, and just sign off. And then before you go home, go in your car and and then meditate, pray, read a word, and then go in there and release. Okay, I'm gonna release everything I do today. I'm gonna go there into my home fresh. And so I have some clients, we do that, and their kids and spouse can see a big difference because they're leaving work at work and going home fully engaged, willing to engage with people. Because what I find with some people, when they're in a highly stressful job, they don't have an end of day ritual. They just move right into home, and then they're totally disengaged. And then whatever the problems are, it builds up, or it manifests in their interaction with their family or significant others. The best thing to do is have an end of day ritual where you're wrapping up the day and then getting ready to go home and be clear about that. The other one that I find out that will help you, that's even more difficult, I think it's the hardest part of that. And I'll give you an example. Like I come from a Filipino family, and I have, I love my mom and dad, my brothers and sisters, but boy, they will suck the energy out of you depending how their day goes. So we have this family outing. Like every year we go to the Outer Banks. My parents got this condo, right? So it's sitting there, and you try to put a bunch like 25 to 30 Filipinos in a 4-bedroom condo with three. I'm like, so I do that for a couple of years, and you're wondering why people don't get upset and fight. So yeah, so I think a couple of years ago, I got in a fight with my sister. I don't go. I avoided that, right? But then I realized that what I realized is that, with them, I kind of realized I avoided it, but I created a solution. What I did is I ended up, when they do it, I get my own Airbnb host or vacation host, have my family there, and then go spend time with them. Because as much as I love my family, I still need to create those boundaries, because I can sense when I go meet with them, I can tell when they're negative or they're stressed and all that. And so they don't know what I know, and even when I suggest the stuff to them, they don't want to hear it. So I just have to make sure that I create boundaries around that. And a lot of the stress that I find out that comes from energy draining is usually the people closest to you. They're usually the hardest ones, because they don't realize that they can drain energy from you. So a lot of times what you have to do is you just really have to create those boundaries. And I've noticed it's really hard after COVID, because during COVID, people had some boundaries, but people's stress level has been really high, exhausted. And then you can start seeing, when you interact with people that are negative. So you have to really create those boundaries, because they will suck your positivity or energy away from you. So a lot of times, I always tell people, I have this funnest exercise. You'll love this, Kim. I like, write down the people in your life who suck the energy out of you. Okay, great. How important are they in your life? Okay, great. How do you limit the exposure and still support them? Write that down. They're like, great. Okay, now which one do you want to do? It's like, why? They're like, why do you do that? So because at the end of the day, you still got to be there present. You just got to know what you're willing to commit to and not overextend yourself, so your energy doesn't get sucked out. And I had a client who did that. He goes, yeah, I have this thing on the thing you told me to write. And I go talk to my mom here. And I talk to my dad. And he loves it. He just knows, I know my boundaries. I know my limits. I will support them. I know what to say no. I know what to say yes. And it's actually lessen his stress, because when you look as all of us, when we're managing stress and burnout, we're a person of whole. So we're interacting with people at work, interacting with people at home, families, relationships. It's how do we, and after COVID, I believe more people are negative than positive, or they don't even recognize it. So you just have to really just create those boundaries, and it's difficult because if you never had created it, it can be done, but it actually protects you so you can give more to the people you care about. The next one that I find out is, here's the hardest thing I find out, is prioritizing your health. A lot of the clients I work with, I said, okay, when's the last time you had your annual physical? When's the last time you actually talked to your doctor and get the full blood work? When's the last time you had your dental appointments? Are you doing any kind of preventive care like chiropractic? Are you looking at other alternatives like IV nutrition? Are you making these appointments important? Because the one thing you have and to prevent stress is how well you're healthy physically, right? Physically, because one of these, they say physical energy is, if you don't have good physical energy, you're not going to be as productive. So to prevent stress is just, get your annual checkups, your dental appointments, look at other like chiropractic care, exercise. I tell, people love exercise and they'll go run, exercise, join a gym. But make those appointments important. And the other thing I tell people, like I have a gentleman, he was like, okay, he's a Christian. How much time are you reading the word? Well, I'm reading it every day. Okay, good. Let's keep doing that stuff. He goes, because eventually down the road is, when you're preventing stress, is take care of you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, right? Look at those things. And a lot of times, a lot of us are givers. We overly give to help other people, but we forget to give our own self and health so we can take care of ourselves, because we overextend our giving by giving without making sure that we're, physically, emotionally, mentally healthy. I always tell clients, like, I had a client this morning and she said she had some issues in her neck. I'm like, all right, when's your physical? When's you're having a doctor appointment? Let's get an MRI. I mean, she was like, really? Yeah, because I need you to be healthy. Because if you're not healthy, how are you going to operate? And you're a leader of a 20 person company. We need you to stay upbeat, positive. And health, and if your health is not good, it will affect your stress and burnout. The other thing that it's interesting too is, are you investing in personal development? Like, this building block's great. I mean, I always tell people all the time that whatever your challenges are, physically, mentally, emotionally, there's probably a workshop, there's probably a book, there's probably a conference that you can attend. So a lot of times when we tell people that, when I had a client recently that, he wanted to, he was feeling stress with his relationship with his kids. I said, okay, what's your learning library? I don't have one. I said, okay, what's your love language with your kids? I don't know. I said, well, okay, let me send you the 5 books of the 5 languages of love, right? Send them a book. I want you to read it, and then we'll talk it through. And so him and his wife read it, and they talked it through. He goes, man, that was great. I said, how much stress do you have? I don't have that much stress anymore because I was able to find a resource that helped me navigate that. So a lot of times in reducing stress and burnout, there's always people in your circle that, if you are just vulnerable and authentic, say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Let's find a resource to help you. There's always a resource. There's always somebody who has solved a problem. So you really have to invest in personal, like, there's conferences, there's workshops, there's reading books, because eventually down the road is, and here's, I always give a disclaimer, is be careful who gives you that information. Go to people who are leaders in your church. Hey, ask them, hey, what are, you struggle with this, what would you recommend? And a lot of times they'll recommend something they've used, right? And then that might be able to help you. But the bottom line is, you need to invest, I call them personal development. Whatever the challenges are, there's always a resource, there's always a book, conference, and workshop. And every time I have clients, I recommend that, hey, what workshop, what book, or what conference you're attending this year, because every time they do that, they not only see their purpose, but they also see their vision. They actually get excited, and literally what they end up wanting to do is their stress level. There's 2 types of stress. There's negative stress and positive stress. Positive stress helps you move forward and accomplish your goals and dreams. Negative stress makes you very disengaged, negative, and then you basically avoid people. So when you're in a stressful situation, you can either take it negative, positive. I think investing in personal development will help you. You just have to really decide you know, how much time and money you want to. But the most successful people I know who lessen their stress have enough counselors, have enough books, conferences, and workshops to attend. But the key is when you attend it, you want to apply it. Don't go and be, I call it, a learning junkie, and then you just learn but you don't apply. The other one is, so this is the journey from anxiety to self-confidence. So morning ritual, structured day, boundaries, self-care, and evening ritual. But what we're going to talk about today, which is, there's a book called Positive Intelligence, will help you measure if your mind works positive and negative, right? And it identifies the negative emotions you have. So, and I was telling the story to Kim and TC about this. Many years ago, you know, I was struggling to stay positive, and I couldn't figure out how to measure it. So I went to a real estate conference, and the presenter said, "Hey, Arnell, you should read the book Positive Intelligence." All right, I read a book. And said, "Oh," then, and I took the test. It said 60%. It said 60% negative, 40% positive. I was like, huh. No. I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then what happens is when I identify the saboteurs, it told me every time I got stressed out, these negative patterns, emotions would show up, right? And then I started looking at my life, right, and figuring out each time I was stressed or got, I call, you know, outcomes of burnout, like disengaging that. I realized that I didn't realize that it was a pattern for me for years. So when I read the book and I did the testing and then worked on it, my positivity is high, and then my ability where my negative emotions in there. Because a lot of times when you're stressed out and you're you know, or on verge of burnout, there's not a really good way to measure unless other people say, "Are you okay?" You know, you look really stressed out. This book, Positive Intelligence, lets you measure where you're at. And interesting, I use this testing in a lot of when we hire people, because we find out you want to hire positive, intelligent people, because when they're handling much change and there's a lot of stress and change, they're able to adapt. So in this example, what it does, it tests your what part of your mind, you know, serves you, what part of your mind sabotages you, and then it gives you these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It gives you these 9 negative patterns that happen when you're stressed. So this person scored 61%, and they had 39. So 39% of their time they're sabotage. They sabotage themselves during the day. And sabotage, if you look at stress, anxiety, frustration, disappointment, and then when that shows up, it shows up in hyperachiever, restaurant pleaser. So it was interesting. And when I did this, I realized that I wanted to find something that helped me measure my positivity versus negative, my mind work against me. But I also wanted to figure out what negative patterns my mind would fall to that I learned as a child. So one of my top one was hyperachiever. So as a hyperachiever, every time I felt stress, I would literally just keep doing things, keep providing more value when I didn't really have to, because that was my way to adapt to stress. And then, but that didn't work. My way to adapt to stress was, let me control the situation. Let me buy a program or something. And then my other way, if those two didn't work out, I would avoid everything new, right? And just kept going. And that was my pattern for years. And then, and that continually just build the stress consistently. Then once I understand how stress works and how you can stay positive, and then understand how these negative emotions happen over time, my assessment score is like high 90s now. And then I only have 3 of these, and my highest one is 3.1. So my ability to handle stress I'm able to recover fast. I'm able to move fast. I'm able not to be stuck, right? And my relationships have gotten better because I am not judging me or circumstances or people. I take a step back and I apply all those 7 strategies, elements of the 7 strategies, and I'm able to adjust differently. Because what I found out is you have to really measure where you're at in stress. And if you're positive, you can't be stressed. You won't be stressed and burnout. If your mind is working against you, and we call it survival mode, then your chances of getting stressed are going to be high, because you're going to sabotage. And when you sabotage on this side right here, it shows the behavior. And over the last 2 years, I've been coaching clients, and we know when they get stressed out, those saboteurs, what they call it, will show up. And it's very interesting too, because it's based on science that the author of the book wrote, and it talks about how once you understand how your mind reacts to stress, then you can understand how to adapt to that. So, and there, I wanted to share that to you because even if you do all the strategies, you really want to figure out, if your mind works with you against, but what you really want to pay attention is these scores here, because that's how you respond to stress. You show up in any of these, and then it affects your behavior, and it's very interesting. Like I'll leave you this. Like my wife is restless. She has high restless. So when she's stressed out, she really just wants to keep very, very busy. So on a rainy day, she won't do much. But on a day is sunny, she's like, let's go do this. Let's go do this. I'm like, honey, can we slow down? But that's her way. And she said that when I grew up, I didn't get to do that stuff, and I want to do it now. And so we realized that, I realized that, she realizes now she needs to adapt to it, because she didn't realize that was her mechanism of how to handle stress. She just assumed that that was normal. So, all right, right here. So that's if you have any questions or anything like that, we can answer it now, and then that's my contact information.